Chosen ones, listen carefully. You are not hearing this by accident, and I'm not saying that to sound mystical. I'm saying it because timing matters, and right now timing is tight. If this message reached you, it means delay has expired. Confusion has reached its limit. God decided silence was no longer acceptable. This is not a general message. This is not motivational noise. This is a warning. There is someone close to you that God has been warning you about, and you already know it. 1. The discomfort you couldn't stet explain. You didn't stet imagine it. You didn't suddenly become sensitive. You didn't stat wake up paranoid. Something changed, but not in the way you think. You matured. And maturity exposes misalignment the way light exposes dust in a room that once looked clean. Nothing new suddenly appeared. What changed was your ability to see clearly. What once blended into the background now stood out. What once felt tolerable now felt heavy. What once felt normal now felt wrong. At first, it was subtle enough to ignore. A quiet shift you couldn't explain without sounding dramatic. A strange tightness after certain conversations. A sense of exhaustion that didn't come from effort, but from interaction. You would walk away feeling drained, second-guessing yourself, or oddly unsettled, even though nothing bad had happened. And because nothing obvious was wrong, you dismissed it. You told yourself you were being too analytical. You told yourself you were reading too much into things. You told yourself to be patient, to be kind, to be understanding. You reminded yourself of history, of loyalty, of shared experiences, of who this person used to be to you or what they once represented. You leaned on logic instead of listening to awareness. You chose explanation over intuition, because intuition didn't come with evidence. But the discomfort didn't set leave. It resurfaced at random moments. When you were quiet, when you were alone, when you made progress, when you felt clarity about your direction. The more you grew, the louder it became. Not as noise, but as pressure. Not as fear, but as friction. That sets the part most people misunderstand. When something is wrong for you, God doesn't always announce it with chaos. Sometimes he reveals it through loss of peace. A relationship can look fine on the surface and still be misaligned beneath it. Words can sound supportive while energy contradicts them. Smiles can remain while intentions quietly shift. And your spirit notices long before your mind accepts it. This is why the feeling stayed. Because God does not disturb your peace without reason. He doesn't repeatedly bring something to your awareness to confuse you. He does it to train your discernment. When something keeps returning to your attention, it is not anxiety. It is instruction. It is guidance pressing gently at first, giving you space to recognize what your growth has already uncovered. You weren't meant to feel guilty for noticing the shift. You weren't meant to suppress it in the name of harmony. Growth always creates contrast. When you evolve, what no longer fits begins to feel uncomfortable. Not because it's evil, but because it's outdated. And here is the truth you need to accept. The discomfort wasn't set a flaw in you. It was evidence of progress. Your standards rose. Your awareness sharpened. Your tolerance for subtle misalignment decreased. What once required effort to notice now required effort to ignore. That sips not weakness. That sips development. And the reason this matters is because discomfort is often the first signal before clarity arrives. God doesn't always remove what no longer belongs immediately. Sometimes he lets you feel the weight of it first, so you don't mistake separation for loss when it finally happens. What you felt was the beginning of understanding, and understanding always comes before change. 2. Why God warns before he removes. God does not remove people abruptly. He reveals them first. This is one of the most consistent patterns in Scripture, yet most people miss it because they expect dramatic signs instead of gradual clarity. They expect lightning, confrontation, or collapse. But God rarely works that way. He works through awareness, through repetition, through quiet confirmation. Before separation, there is discomfort. Before pruning, there is exposure. Before the door closes, there is a warning. This is not delay. This is mercy. In every major turning point in Scripture, warning came before loss. Noah was warned long before the floodwaters rose. Joseph was shown dreams before betrayal ever took place. Lot was urged to leave before destruction fell. God did not surprise them. He prepared them, and He is doing the same with you. If God is warning you about someone close to you, it is not because they are evil, dangerous, or intentionally harmful. Most of the time, they don't even realize what they're doing. The issue is not their character. The issue is alignment. They were meant to walk with you for a season, not for a lifetime. When seasons change, proximity becomes dangerous. God reveals misalignment slowly, so you have time to adjust without resentment. He allows patterns to repeat, so you can recognize them without denial. He lets the mask slip in small moments, so you don't need a dramatic ending to justify a quiet exit. That's why the warning didn't arrive as chaos. It arrived as clarity. You began noticing how certain interactions disrupted your focus, how conversations felt circular instead of constructive, how your peace increased when distance naturally formed. These were not accidents. They were checkpoints. God showing you what needs to change before He enforces it Himself. Because here is the hard truth. If you ignore a warning, God doesn't cancel the outcome. He escalates the lesson, not to punish you, but to protect what He's preparing. Warnings are God's way of saying, move now so it doesn't hurt later. They are invitations to respond willingly, instead of being forced by circumstance. They give you the dignity of choice, and choice matters. God will never force separation before giving you understanding, but He also will not allow you to remain attached to what compromises your future. If something consistently disturbs your peace, drains your energy, or resists your growth, it is already out of alignment, even if it still feels familiar. This is why the warning came gently. This is why it repeated. And this is why it keeps happening now. Because the season you're entering cannot carry unresolved attachments. The clarity you're receiving is preparation, not rejection. God is not removing support. He is removing interference. And once you see that, the warning stops feeling threatening. It starts feeling like guidance. 3. When patience turned into delay, you didn't ignore the warning because you were careless. You delayed because you were loyal. You believed patience could fix what clarity was already exposing. You thought if you gave it more time, more understanding, more grace, things would settle back into place. You told yourself endurance was strength, silence was maturity, staying was proof of character. And for a while that was true. God honors patience. He honors mercy. He honors restraint. But patience is not meant to override discernment, and loyalty is not meant to cost you alignment. There comes a moment when patience quietly turns into delay, and delay becomes disobedience. That moment is uncomfortable because it forces honesty. It reveals that what you are calling kindness may actually be fear of change, that what you are calling loyalty may actually be attachment, that what you are calling wisdom may actually be avoidance. And God sees that moment clearly. He saw how long you stayed quiet. He saw how often you adjusted yourself instead of addressing the tension. He saw how you protected the relationship more than your own peace. Nothing about that was wasted. Your patience was not weakness. It was preparation. God allowed you to stay long enough that you could leave without regret. Long enough that you could say you tried. Long enough that doubt would no longer follow you when separation became necessary. But now that season has ended. What once required patience now requires decision. What once needed mercy now needs movement. Because staying longer will not heal what has already been revealed. It will only postpone what must happen. This is where many people misunderstand God. They think if something lasts, it must be right. They think if God hasn't removed it, they should keep tolerating it. But God often waits for you to move first, not because he needs permission, but because he wants your agreement. Agreement produces peace. Resistance produces pressure. That pressure you've been feeling isn't confusion. It's friction between where you are standing and where you are meant to go. God does not rush you, but he does not wait forever. Mercy has timing. Wisdom has seasons. And when clarity arrives, hesitation becomes costly. This is not about guilt. It's about growth. You are not being judged for staying. You are being invited to stop staying longer than necessary, because the strength you developed through patience was meant to carry you forward, not keep you stuck. And now the question is simple. Will you move willingly or be moved eventually? Because God will not allow delay to damage what he has already prepared for you. 4. The signs you kept rationalizing. Once clarity begins, the signs are no longer dramatic. They are consistent. God doesn't need to shout when repetition will do the work. He allows patterns to form, so you can no longer explain them away as coincidence. The same behaviors show up in different moments. The same reactions repeat in new situations. The same tension surfaces no matter how much you try to smooth it over. And still, you rationalized. You told yourself they were just stressed. You told yourself timing was off. You told yourself you were expecting too much. But the truth is, simpler than all of that. Your peace increased when distance naturally formed. That is not accidental. You noticed how conversations left you second-guessing yourself, how your clarity felt challenged, subtly questioned, or quietly dismissed. Not aggressively, just enough to create doubt. Just enough to slow your momentum. Just enough to pull you back into old patterns of self-explanation and restraint. That's how misalignment works. It doesn't attack your confidence directly. It erodes it slowly. You also notice something else that was harder to admit. When good things happened to you, their response felt muted. When you shared growth, their enthusiasm felt forced. When you moved forward, their energy shifted, not openly negative, but noticeably resistant. Not everyone who claps for you is happy you're winning, and not everyone who stays close wants you to move ahead. They didn't sabotage you loudly. They didn't oppose you openly. They simply failed to support you fully. And that matters more than people realize. Because support isn't measured by words, it's measured by alignment. God allowed you to see this slowly, so you wouldn't need anger to justify distance. He let understanding replace emotion. He let clarity replace confusion. And once you see the pattern, you can unsee it. That sets when rationalization becomes exhausting. Explaining their behavior takes more energy than accepting the truth. Defending the relationship costs more than releasing it. And pretending nothing is wrong begins to feel dishonest to yourself. That exhaustion is not weakness. It is awareness reaching completion. God does not reveal misalignment to make you bitter. He reveals it to make you free. The signs were not meant to trap you in analysis. They were meant to give you permission to stop forcing what no longer flows. And the moment you stop rationalizing, peace begins to return. Because clarity always brings relief, even when it brings separation. 5. The hard truth about separation. Some relationships do not need fixing. They need ending. That sentence is difficult because it confronts attachment, not logic. You weren't holding on because things were good. You were holding on because they were familiar. Familiarity creates a false sense of safety, even when growth is being restricted. God understands that. That's why he didn't rush you. He allowed time, exposure, and understanding to do their work first. He let you reach the conclusion yourself, so separation wouldn't feel impulsive or cruel. Because this is not about anger. This is about obedience. There are people who are assigned to your past, not your future. They played a role, taught a lesson, or supported a version of you that no longer exists. And when roles expire, presence becomes interference. God will never allow your future to be negotiated by your past attachments. You may feel guilt when you think about stepping back. You may worry about how it looks, how it feels, or how it will be interpreted. But distance does not require explanation. Growth does not need permission, and separation does not always require confrontation. Sometimes the most obedient response is quiet withdrawal, less access. Fewer explanations, clear boundaries enforced through action, not argument. Distance is not rejection. Distance is wisdom. If God wanted you to confront, he would have made it clear. But if he is asking you to step back, it's because clarity, not conflict, is the lesson. You are not called to fix what God is removing. You are not responsible for carrying someone beyond the season they were assigned to, and you are not disloyal for choosing alignment over attachment. This is where strength is required. Not the strength to fight, the strength to let go without drama. Because once separation is framed as obedience, fear loses its power. You stop seeing distance as loss and start recognizing it as protection. You stop wondering what you're losing and start noticing what's returning. Peace, clarity, focus, direction. And that steps when you realize something important. What God is removing is not support. It's resistance. And the moment you stop resisting the separation, the weight lifts. Because obedience always restores peace, even when it costs familiarity. 6. Why this moment cannot be delayed. This warning is arriving now because what comes next will not tolerate excess weight. Earlier seasons allowed margin. They allowed trial and error. They allowed emotional overlap and unfinished attachments. But the season you are stepping into is different. It is precise. It is demanding. And it is expensive when mishandled. You can feel that already. Decisions carry more weight than they used to. Distractions cost more than they used to. Recovery from setbacks takes longer than it used to. That's not weakness. That's responsibility increasing. God does not elevate without refining. The reason delay feels uncomfortable now is because it is no longer neutral. What once felt optional now feels heavy. What once felt manageable now feels draining. What once felt harmless now feels disruptive. That is not pressure from the world. That is alignment tightening. Partial obedience worked before. It will not work here. You cannot move forward while dragging unresolved attachments behind you. You cannot hear clearly while surrounding yourself with voices that distort, distract, or dilute your direction. You cannot step fully into what's next while emotionally negotiating with what's already complete. Hesitation is no longer protected, not because God is impatient, but because the window is real. God narrows focus before he increases impact. He simplifies before he multiplies. He reduces noise before he gives instruction. This is why your circle feels smaller, your tolerance lower, and your desire for clarity stronger. You are being prepared for something that requires accuracy. Accuracy requires peace. Peace requires alignment. Alignment requires separation. This is why the warning intensified. This is why it repeated. This is why ignoring it now would cost more than responding to it. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for decision, not emotional reaction, directional movement. Because once you move, the pressure stops. Once you align, the confusion clears. Once you step back from what no longer fits, momentum returns. The delay you feel is not external. It sips internal resistance meeting divine timing, and timing will win. So this moment is not about overthinking, it's about responding. Because what God is preparing for you does not wait for hesitation, it responds to obedience. 7. Activation. Alignment over attachment. This is the moment you stop negotiating with what you already know. You don't need more signs. You don't need more confirmation. You don't need another warning. You felt it the moment this message reached you. The name came to mind without effort. The memory surfaced without invitation. That reaction was not coincidence. It was recognition. God has already shown you enough. You are not being asked to explain yourself. You are not being asked to defend your decision. You are not being asked to justify distance to anyone who benefited from your hesitation. You are being asked to choose alignment. And alignment always costs attachment, but what it gives in return is clarity, peace, and forward movement. When you step back from what no longer belongs, you don't fall behind, you accelerate. You regain energy that was being leaked. You recover focus that was being fragmented. You restore authority over your own direction. This is not loss. This is release. You are not losing people. You are losing limitations. You are not being abandoned. You are being repositioned. And the moment you stop resisting that truth, strength returns. Not emotional strength, but decisiveness. The kind that doesn't argue. The kind that doesn't panic. The kind that moves quietly and confidently. If this message reached you, and something inside you agreed with it, acknowledge that agreement. Not for the algorithm, but as an act of alignment. Like the video, subscribe. If you are ready to walk forward consciously, comment something simple. I understand, as confirmation that you are choosing clarity over comfort, because awareness without action changes nothing, but alignment changes everything. The warning was given. The preparation is complete. The time is now. Move with wisdom. Move with courage. And move without hesitation. Nothing was wasted. You were prepared. And alignment begins now. This is where the message ends, and your movement begins. You were not warned to be afraid. You were warned to be free. God does not reveal what no longer belongs to confuse you. He reveals it so you don't carry it forward. What you release now will not follow you into what's next. Trust what you recognized. Honor what became clear. Walk away without bitterness and forward without hesitation. You are not late. You are not mistaken. You are not alone. You were prepared for this moment. And the moment is now.